success stories told by the people who live them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and check it out. We're doing something that we've never done on the podcast before. So in the Hit Lab with me today, I've got the one and only Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter, and he's got a brand new single out, the first one in over a decade. It's called The Shave. I've got my man, Bobby Pinson, in the Hit Lab today. Bobby.
What's going on, man? How are you? Top of the morning to you.
Well, dude, I am so excited to have you in. I know we worked real hard to make this happen because you're a busy, busy boy.
Well, you guys are pretty busy, too. Y'all were trying to get me on days that I was writing, and I was writing on days that y'all were doing this. But I'm glad to be here, and it's worked out great, and gave me a little time to put out a song in the meantime since we first started talking about this. And I'm glad to have The Shave out, and I'm glad to be here this morning.
Well, man, if I told you that it didn't choke me up when I listened to it, I'd be lying. I'd be lying. It's my daddy always taught me that there's songs need to make you feel a certain way. They need to do something to you. Right. And I'm glad we hadn't taken you out of that songwriter's room too much, because that's like taking the chef out of the kitchen, man. The magic don't happen.
You know, there's all kinds of songs, and all kinds of songs do all kinds of jobs. And that particular song is one of those songs that I love to write. That makes you call somebody. I mean, if songs didn't have words, we wouldn't have a song, you know. And people say, why do you do it? And what I get out of it are the stories that come back from folks and say, man, I was driving, I had to pull over the side of the road, I had to pull under underpass, I stopped, I called my son, I looked up my dad's number, even though he's not here anymore. That's what we get out of it, you know. I mean, you can discuss all the reasons to be in the music business, or all the reasons to not be in the music business, or reasons that you're in the music business in spite of itself. But what I really get as a songwriter is I want to affect people. And, you know, I moved to town trying to write these kinds of songs when I first got here, these songs that would just knock people out, just would kill people and change their life 3 minutes at a time. And along the way, I figured out that I have to write songs that may not change anybody's life but mine in order to, you know, I kind of got to write just the crappy songs to afford my good song habit. But along the way, you know, I've never lost sight of myself and what I love to do. And what I love to do is feel, and I love to laugh. And sometimes you can do both at the same time. Sometimes you got to cry. And this is one of those things that I can't tell you how many people have heard and said, I thought it was going to be sad, you know, talking about your dad passing away and all the lead up that people read about this song. And it's blowing up, you know, and people read it and they're like, I thought this was going to be a sad song, but I actually feel really good at the end of it. And I'm like, that's the best thing you could say to me. Thank you.
Well, man, it hits everybody, man. And from the first time, but your ability to deliver it as the artist, though, man, is really like the emotional journey through the picking, when the instruments are coming in and out, and just your delivery on it, man.
One of the toughest things about my job is figuring out which songs go where, or trying to give songs to people that you wish they wouldn't have gone to, or hoping that this guy that you want it to be sung by, that it makes it to him. You know, those are the difficult things that have happened for me for the last 25 years, trying to figure out, you know, what's God doing with your songs. Because you don't write the biggest songs with the biggest songwriters for the biggest artists. You write songs you love with people you love, and let God take care of the rest. And for me, he's done really, really. Is that a hit?
That was a hit, baby.
All right. Well, I got 2 hits already. It's not even 10 o'clock now. Well, you know, in this particular case, it was real simple. You know, I needed to sing this song. It was my song. It was my emotion. And it's built for me. And I was built for this song. So I haven't made music in over 15 years. You know, I Skinny Bobby years ago made a record, you know, called Man Like Me on RCA Records. And, of course, some of your listeners were probably 4 years old when that was happening, and some of them are my age. But I had a song called Don't Ask Me How I Know that really kind of lit the world on fire years ago as a artist, and it never went number one, but it hit like a number one. And to this day, it's one of the most recurrent songs, you know, that I hear all the time. And it's interesting because my friends will be hearing, you know, listening to Sirius or streaming or whatever, and they'll send me pictures of Don't Ask Me How I Know in their car. Well, now they're starting to send me pictures of The Shave, and it feels good to kind of be back in business, you know. I just kind of felt like God had for me a songwriting career, and it was ugly getting there. Like I did everything I possibly could to mess up God's plan, trying to be an artist.
Don't we all?
An artist, yeah, right, and just being human. But I think, just being human is what makes me the artist that I am, whether Nashville likes it or not.
That's right.
And I just always wanted to paint pictures, and I sing them with a kind of a photographic delivery, and that's what the shave is. That's what my records have been in the past. I've got a new project coming out that's called The Long Shot, because I'm not trying to be Morgan Wallen. I love Morgan Wallen. I hope he cuts everything I write. I love Hardy. I love the guys that are wanting to do that are in that lane. I'm just 50 years old and not getting younger, and my songs are not getting younger either. But the difference between now and when I was making records was, back in my day, was that there was no streaming. So you were at the mercy of who ran radio, what did they want to play, what did you have to do to have their ear, what did you have to do for them to play your song, what did you have to do for your label to get them to help push your song to radio.
That's right.
That game is gone. And so everybody's kind of DJing their own party now. Everybody can pick what they want to hear. So it's not an easier game, it's just a different game, and it allows guys like me that have probably lost their audience. Now I have an audience of people that lost their music. The guys that love country music now can find it, because we're trying to find them. We just got to find each other. And I know I have a lot of friends out there. I have a lot of fans of my music. I just got to find them. And so that's what we're doing.
Bam. Man, that's awesome. That's incredible. So, yeah, man. So first of all, I made a promise to my son Ethan. He said to tell you hello.
Hey,
from
Ethan,
him.
how you doing, buddy?
And it's on camera, baby.
I
We're
love
doing it right.
that guy. We rode around in the truck out on some property one time with his grandpa, which is my friend, your dad, Mr. Mickey, I call him, and we were out riding some back roads. So that's the best thing you can do with me.
Absolutely. Well, he said he was so upset his first day of school today, or else he would have been sitting right over there hanging with us today, because that's what he gets to do. So very cool, man. So you mentioned you kind of told us a little bit of journey about how you do what you do, and that was a mammoth hit. It seems like not that long ago, but I guess it's been a minute.
Been almost 17 years.
And Ethan and I jammed to that all the time. I don't know if you know that. That's one of our favorite tracks to play too.
I love it, man. Well, I love that song. I love what it says, and I love what it helps. Who it helps. Back in my day, there was no Instagram. There was no instant gratification of, I put out this song, somebody texted me about it and said, man, you just made me pull over, which is what's happening now. Back in the day, there was not even cell phones. I'm dating myself here. But I got a call from my booking agent at the time, who literally said, come over to my office. I go to his office. He plays me like the Codaphone, like the old answer machine, where you got to and you got to hear the recorded message. And this guy had called him over the weekend and left a message, said, I'm sorry, I know you're not the guy to talk to, but I think you represent Bobby Pinson, and I just want to get this message to him that 20 minutes ago I had a gun in my mouth.
Oh, wow.
And I heard that song, and I was like, I don't know why I took the gun out of my mouth because of this song, but this song gave me a reason to live. And that's real. That's real. I mean, that's not a joke. That's not something you advertise. That's not something I walk around saying, but I say it now simply to draw the parallel between song, how it touched people then and how it touches people now. Well, the way people respond and the way people consume music and the way people handle what you're saying, that might have all changed, but the reaction, what a song does to somebody, that stays the same.
That's right.
That's been the same for 25 years that I've been doing it.
Well, there's we've had some amazing people in previous episodes, one being another artist and songwriter friend, the great Danny Myrick.
Love that.
You guys are, we talk about a lot about sales, generating revenues, why people go into business. And I'm going to tell you, I actually met your wife and your son, who is like, man, like that dude is a stud.
He's got it going on.
Yes, he does. I met them
from his mama.
I met them before I met you, but that's when I knew you could sell, as I met your wife.
That's right. I just found the hottest blind girl that couldn't, smell or terrible judge of character. I'm like, what are you doing forever? What you drinking?
That's right. Well, man, so I want to take everybody back a little bit about, did you start writing songs first or performing first? Like, how did that work out when you was young and you got
I
the
started,
bug?
my dad, who I wrote The Shave about, when I was 9 years old, I'll just never forget where I was. I had this little guitar he paid $100 for, which is now in my house. And he played Salute John B, and that was his song. He taught me how to play that and Jambalaya. Jambalaya, crawfish pie, feel it gum. I had 2 chords.
That's right.
G and C. So I learned it. And you know, my grandpa was a songwriter. And he kind of put the big dream in a little boy about songs. I didn't know that was such a thing. And that was later as a teenager. But I learned how to play guitar from my dad. I learned how to sing. And then music was just in our house. You know, every time, musical family, every time we got together at Thanksgiving or whatever, it would turn into this big jam session of just, you know, playing bluegrass songs or whatever. And I didn't come up with a bluegrass background like they did. I came up with more of just listening to the songs that my dad listened to. I just made a playlist, actually, that's the songs that I listened to while I was learning to drive.
Oh, wow.
My dad and I. And it's called In Dad's Truck. And it's just all the good Merle Haggard and Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and Elvis and all the stuff that he loved that I didn't even realize how much that had impacted me. When people say, what'd you grow up with? I grew up with my dad, you know, and the songs that he would do. He'd wrap an old tie around his head and do the Willie Nelson impression. You know, it was maybe not the best Willie Nelson impression. I don't know that Willie would have heard it and go, "Oh, you're awesome," but it was awesome to us. That's what we had, and that was my musical background. You know, growing up was my dad.
Man, that's incredible. So, when did you figure out that you had to do this for a living? Like,
Sure.
you know, so obviously you probably worked some jobs you didn't like while you was chasing that dream, right?
Bunch
so,
of them.
nothing happens overnight, including just starting your regular old business around the corner, right? So talk to me about that journey.
What does happen overnight is the decision to come here, you know. And I tell everybody, it's like, get here, stay here, don't leave here, and be here. You don't break into the music business, you stay in the music business. Now, whether or not you knew you're in it when it happened, I didn't know. One day I was still trying. The next day I'm old telling people no. You know, one day I was getting told no, and the next day I'm the guy going, well, you need to do this, and I'll tell you yes. So, and it seems like it was just yesterday. I was out on the West Coast. I was in the military. I was in the Army. And the last year that I was in the Army, I was at Fort Ord, California, and Fort Ord was closing down, and I didn't have enough time left in the military to go to Fort Lewis, where the whole post was moving to. So I was one of about 100 people just left on this base, ghost town. And I started singing, and I was singing at all the posts. As they were closing down, all the battalions would close down, and they would have a ceremony, and I would go sing Proud to Be an American in my uniform, you know, and that was my job. I was just singing. And then there was a sergeant major that heard me at one of those things. He said, would you come play my birthday party? So then I took an acoustic guitar, and that was the first gig I ever got, was playing the sergeant major's birthday party. And when you're just a, you know, specialist in the Army, you're going to go do that. That's the biggest gig I've had to this day, you know.
That's right.
And through that, I met somebody else, and they introduced me to somebody. And then I just started getting this little band together. Well, we started rehearsing in one of those closed down chow halls, you know, because nobody's in there. So I had my civilian band come on, and we would record, and we would rehearse in these mess halls. And if there was a sound that you could attribute to rehearsing in a military mess hall, we had it, you know. They were all better than I was. I wasn't very good, but you know, I was just playing some cover songs, playing the fireman and doing that kind of stuff. And we started a little gig and started getting together, and that was 1993. And from 93, I moved here in 96, finally made the move, and that's a whole other story. But I kept going back to the West Coast. I was stationed at Fort Ord, which is Monterey, California.
Okay.
But my band was out of San Jose, Salinas, and all that, and I lived in Carmel Valley at the time. And so I was just had developed some gigs and kept serving that, kept going back every fall to play all those festivals, great festivals out there on the West Coast.
Absolutely.
And that's how I started, and I was just playing covers. Well, my bass player, I wasn't a very good acoustic guitar player at the time, and I don't know that I am now, but I'm better than I was. But they would never put my acoustic guitar in their monitors, so if I ever wanted to do something different, they wouldn't hear me change. So I finally just started writing songs at sound check, just songs that my bass player had never heard, and if he didn't change with me, I'd know my guitar wouldn't.
Oh,
so I'd be like, turn up my guitar, and because he can't hear me, and I started writing songs, and just jamming out, and that's how I literally taught myself how to write songs. So I'd written probably 20 songs, and I came to town with a sack full of songs I probably should have left, you know, out on the West Coast, but I came to town, and there was a songwriter named Paul Nelson and Larry Boone that I had met, two of them. when I was out on the West Coast, they were there playing golf and doing some big songwriters thing, and they were the guest speakers, and I played them my songs, and they thought I had something. So they kind of gave me the thing of call us when you get to town. I called them, and nothing happened. 3 years went by. I was working at Papa John's till they fired me for eating off of another person's pizza, but that's another story. That's another story. True story. And I've never been fired before ever, but if you're going to get fired,
that's the way to go. If I would have totally licked somebody's ice cream cone at a Dairy Queen if I was there.
Right. Well, I worked my way up to the night driver, the closing driver. That doesn't sound like much, but that's the gig, right? Because you can make more in the last 2 hours delivering everybody's pizza than just your couple of pizzas every hour. So I got 6 pizzas in this Bronco, and I was basically getting about 4 feet to the gallon in this Bronco, and I pull in. I'm like cranking Def Leppard, and I pull in. And the guy, I guess I didn't see him walk out, and I was over at the old Continental Hotel on Murfreesboro Road, which I don't even know if that thing's still there. It probably should not be. But it had 2 stories to it, and I pull in, and I pull the guy's pizza out, and there's these 2 beautiful pieces of pepperoni that didn't make the pizza. It's like on the crust, and I was so hungry. It was late. It's raining. I eat the pepperoni off. I stack them up, and I eat it. And the guy, I look out, and he goes, "Hey, dude, I know you didn't just eat off my pizza." He was upstairs. He'd come out because he heard my radio. And I looked at him and said, "I'll be right back." So I finally make it back to the place, and my manager's like, "Bobby, what the heck?" And I said, "Did you get you a call?" He said, "I got a big call." And I said, "Well, just tell him I'll buy the pizza and I'll bring it back." He goes, "I already told him that. He didn't want you to come back." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because he's afraid you'll spit on his pizza." And I said, "Why would you be?" I said, "Well, what'd you tell him?" He said, "I've known Bobby a long time, and he might eat off your pizza, but he'd never spit on it."
That's right.
I put that on my tombstone.
Well, that needs to be. So there's going to be a song about that story.
I'm
right?
sure. You had enough whiskey to me. I'll write a song on the spot about that.
Ain't that the truth? Well, man. So, you write for a lot of people. So obviously, you understand a lot about brands because you're writing for a lot of people. You're writing for yourself. What are some of how do you make those decisions when you figure out this is somebody? Do you say I want to write a song for X, or do you write a song and then say that needs to go to X? How does that work for you?
Sure, and there's a lot of questions there, and they all have different answers. So I'll try to get them together. But it's art and commerce.
Okay. Oh, geez.
So you're trying to figure out how can I touch somebody, how can I reach somebody, and that's 2 different things. Because touching them is what happens after you reach them. Reach them is what is the hardest thing to happen out of this town. Writing a great song. I'll tell everybody. I mean, you'll write a great song before you write a good one, and this is a town of good ones. I feel like The Shave is one of those that's a level above the things that we do every day because of the emotion of it. And I'm not saying that the ones that we make hits out of on a daily basis are not emotional. It's just a different lane. And so the first thing to do is, you're trying to figure out, okay, maybe you're pointing towards somebody. Maybe I write with a lot of my artists. So they call me out and I'm writing on these tour bus. They don't write when they're home. They're with their families. So when they're out parked beside a dumpster backstage somewhere at 3:00 in the afternoon between lunch and dinner, we're writing a song.
That's right.
And so that's probably the main thing I do. But in the fall, when there's not a lot of tourists going on, I also write with songwriters. And I wrote a song called Some of It that was nominated for a Grammy. It was cut by Eric Church. But the song started with me and 2 other songwriters that I love very much, Clint Daniels and Jeff Hyde. And in full disclosure, I had to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom and I wrote this verse, basically the first verse, in the bathroom. And I come back and they're like, "Can you go back in the bathroom?" We still have to write a chorus. But, that's how that song started. We took it to Eric. Eric made it his, changed a few little things, and put a bridge on there, and just sang the heck out of it and made it his own. And that's a beautiful thing when it can happen. And you hope that happens. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's just me by myself or me and a couple of writers, and we pitch these songs to whoever. And the way we do that is we all have publishing companies. We all have that are basically like our brokers, and they take our songs to their contacts, and we have the same contacts, but I don't pitch my own things. It's almost a little bit of a conflict of interest. Like, I don't need to call up Luke Bryan and go, "Hey man, I want to play you a song." Now, I have, but not on a regular basis.
Right.
I just had a song called Up that Luke Bryan just put out, and I'd called him while I was writing. I'm like, "Come right on the song. We're hitting country gold over here." He's like, "I'm elk hunting. I can't get there." And 2 years later, almost to the day, he called me, and I was elk hunting. He said, "I'm putting your song out as a single."
I'll be damned.
I played it for him over the phone, and he just broke down and went and recorded it 3 days later. A lot of times that doesn't happen. A lot of times these songs will be around forever, and our pluggers will just pitch them to everybody in town. And with the it's changed a lot, because back in the day it was such a songwriter's town.
Yep.
You would write a song. You're the guy with the goods. You go pitch the goods to a guy that needs the goods so he can sing about it, right? Now all the singers are writing their own songs for lots of different reasons. Record labels have 360 deals, which means they get a piece of the writing now, so they're really pushing their artists to be writers. Mm-hmm. And nothing against that. I still have to eat lunch in this town, but it has changed a lot of the music, and the music's changed over the last few years. So guys like me, I'm just not going to chase it. It's a cyclical thing. And so if you chase it, where are you going to be when it starts chasing you? You're not going to be where you left it. So I just have stayed still over the years and written my own songs. And I don't have 4 hits every year. I have 4 hits over 4 years, but they all happen in a 1 year time. And then 4 years will go by, and then it'll hit again. I'm about to start my probably 5th run. In this town, you're lucky if you get 1 run. So
That's right.
I've been at this a long time. And to answer your question, there's not a really right or wrong or a thing that we do every day the same way. The thing I do every day the same is that I try to have a certain amount of integrity in my songs, a certain amount of structure in my songs, and that's a brand. I do feel like not just the people in this town that listen to songs that get paid to say no, not just them, but the listener can hear my song. And that one of my proudest things to hear, one of my biggest compliments I could get, is when somebody says, "I heard that song, I knew you wrote it." And I mean, you think about how hard that is, in such a big pool of great music, great songwriters, great singers. And then that's just in this genre. And then you think of all the other genres that the listeners are listening to at the same time. And then to be able to go, I knew you wrote that song. I'm proud of that. And I take that seriously.
Absolutely. When the one thing that Charlie Monk, both him and Danny, really talked, they mentioned this one word a lot, and that was called authenticity.
Yeah.
And that was, that's that star factor. You get all the star factors have that. They're looking for that, and you mentioned some really authentic folks up in there. You know what I mean? And that's so cool. So well, hold on. Let me just stay right there for a second. So first of all, you mentioned the people that you got to know. In any business you're in, your network, your net worth is going to be some reflection of your net worth, or your net worth is going to be a reflection of your network.
Yeah, I say that access is success.
Ooh,
and so
come on.
You have to have those relationships, and it's not just the music business. You've heard your whole life. It's not what you know; it's who you know, and that truly is the thing. But there's a way to authentically do that too. And for me, we've always said this is a drinking town, and what that really means is it's not necessarily a town that you got to go be drunk in. It's just a town that you got to be out in. People say, "What's your advice for a songwriter?" And I say, get here and get out, get out, meet people, because we're trying to write songs horizontally, not vertically, meaning, if a guy's trying to break into this music business, or a girl, whether it's as a singer or as a songwriter or as both, it's about meeting people. Meet 13 people on each side of you that are all doing the same thing. And what's unique about this town that is not a whole lot like a lot of other businesses is that our competition are also our peers. So everything's great until, you come to a spot through the wall where only one of you can fit, and then the elbows start flying, and that happens. But the most of the time you're just friends with people around you. Somebody's better than you. And as the better you get, the less and less people are better than you, and the more people are looking for you for help. Mm-hmm. But if you think of a Luke Combs, right? Luke Combs comes into town. He puts more people in the music business than Garth Brooks, and that's saying something, because Garth is the same way, just loyal to a fault, in a good way, of just being true to the people that gave him a shot when nobody else would. And Luke Combs has done that. Well, he has done that horizontally, left and right of himself, and he's writing songs with people that have never had hits, and now they're hit songwriters because they're with Luke. And that's what I tell people, is like, just get here. It's a drinking town, or it's a meeting town, and meet people, and just write songs. Don't try to write songs with the guys that have all the big hits. Don't come and just get a feather in your hat.
Right.
It's not about the feather in your hat. It's about the hat.
Oh, So, access is success. We say it all the time. Contacts lead to contracts. Interactions lead to transactions, right? So, and growing up, I know my daddy had to be out a lot. He had to be out a lot. Mingling. It seems like I got to go to so many dang number one parties as a kid. How cool are those?
Yeah, it's awesome, and you don't do it for the number one parties, but to have one, to be recognized for that, and to have the people that, like we said, that you met when you didn't have anything going on, to have them be there as you're celebrating something that has happened good. It's hope for you, it's hope for them, and it's just a good thing, I tell everybody, you got to have the little celebrations along the way, because that's what keeps you here. Don't be afraid to go, heck yeah, I did good, or tell somebody, heck yeah, you did good. And most of the people that I know here, we've known each other longer than we've known our own kids,
right?
Because I've been in this business 25 years. So it seems like yesterday I was a young guy trying to meet the old guy. Now I'm the old guy meeting the young guy. It just is the way it is. But I feel like I owe it to myself, and I owe it to my craft, and I owe it to this town to be the guy that I was happy that I would have met when I was a kid. Because there's a lot of guys that, not to name names and wouldn't, but there's a lot of guys that I wish I wouldn't have met. I wish I would have just got to just keep loving them, because there ought to be a law against meeting your heroes,
oh my gosh.
And you sure are hitting.
Oh my God. You're on fire, bro.
I'm on fire, baby. But it's the truth. And so I always wanted to be the guy, or I've always tried to treat it like, man, be the guy somebody's glad they met.
Absolutely. So, there's no standard schedule to the arts like you're doing, right? When you get inspired, it probably happens at some of the most unlikely and untimely places. How do you stay balanced with, because you have a great relationship at home. You don't miss ball games. You don't miss any of those things. How do you balance everything? Because again, you don't know when you're going to get inspired that next time. Do you make a note? How do you when it hits you?
And there's a couple questions in there, a couple answers in there. I do have a great family. I mean, that's first for me, God and family and country music. There's a song. Right. But
do we need to pause so you can write that down?
I got it. It's on tape. We got it. We got a record of it. But my son is a travel baseball guy, and so when they travel on the road, I miss some games, which stinks. But it's just more of a scheduling thing. And I have a schedule that's pretty flexible, but I still have to show up. I still have to do it. So sometimes it's just impossible to be gone.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I write 3 days a week, and then have a 5-day weekend. But in those 5 days, I'm also doing studio stuff, or I'm doing things like this, or I'm doing, catching appointments that maybe had to get rescheduled. I can just do it at the last minute, or I'm on a tour bus. So yes, I'm constantly writing songs, but really I'm just constantly hearing songs. I call it keep your antennas up. I listen to the world 10 seconds at a time. If you drop a pen on a table and it makes a noise, to me that's a rhythm. I'll record it. If I'm pulling a suitcase across one of those fast track conveyor things in an airport and it's making a noise, I'll record it. Last time I did that, I literally recorded my suitcase making a noise because I had a little something on the wheel. I took it to Jennifer Nettles and Christian Bush, and we wrote a song called "It Happens" from the rhythm. I hear songs all the time. So to answer your question, I record it, I'll write it down, and it's just bullets for somebody else's gun. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll write 30 seconds just to really explain the angle through music versus maybe risking having it be lost in translation. If I'm just trying to talk about it, I can say, rather than talk about somebody, say, I have this idea, called, Burning Man. And instead of trying to explain that, I would just have a little something going, which in that case, somebody brought me a little something that they had, and we just took it and expanded on it. I think it's just the collection of your thoughts, collection of the main thing you can do is write it down. And people always say, how do I become a songwriter? We're all songwriters, right? Just some of us are better than others. Some of us have we're all poets, we're all songwriters, we're all storytellers. It's just a matter of packaging it in a commercial way. But for those that aren't trying to do it commercially, that are just trying to get their thoughts down, that's the very first thing you have to do is just get your thoughts down, just write it down. And whether it ever becomes a song or it just stays a thought, at least you have it down. And that's the hardest thing to learn how to do because it's not convenient.
That's right.
But I'll get a message from Toby Keith, and he's on a Harley, and he's singing on a Harley, and you can't hardly hear anything, and he's like, "Sorry about that, but I had to get that down."
That's right.
He sends it to me, and then we process it and write a song.
That's so cool. So you personally, are you a guy that does the lyrics come to you first, and you have to apply the melody later? Or are you just picking and strumming along?
And that's probably the number one question I get.
Yep.
And it's both. I mean, the answer is yes to both and no to both. Which comes first, the words and the music? Well, if you get in my phone here, there's probably 2,000 voice messages that I've left myself just going ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, or whatever. And then I might have a song. Let me just see. I've got song ideas in here. Let me pick one.
This is so cool.
So I got to get my glasses. I'm getting old. It's old, isn't it?
I have to wear mine all the time, man. Plus, it hides my face.
I'm officially old now. Let's see here. Okay, so last night I had a melody and a verse. It's like, you only love me when I'm leaving. You only miss me when you're gone. And so I happened to have a melody and a lyric at the same time. So I was, out last night at a restaurant. I got up, walked out, and recorded it. Here's another one. Heartaches and honky tonks. I don't know what else goes with it.
That's right.
But I was just sitting there. I was like, man, I love Brooks and Dunn. I've always loved Brooks and Dunn.
Absolutely.
They're half heartache and they're half honky tonk. So I told somebody, I said, they've always been honky tonk. They've always been heartache. And I went, heartache and honky tonk, which that's copyright me, by the way, for all you songwriters out there. Just kidding. But so it's just sitting there waiting for the day that somebody looks like they need to write heartache honky tonks. If I'm writing for Blake Shelton, I know that I'll put that in a little folder and go, that could be a Blake, kind of a John Party or something like that. So you always kind of think of people that might could do something. For me, it's more or less just to hold it for them, to know, to compartmentalize a little bit and go, okay, this is kind of a honky tonkin' thing, or this is kind of a love ballad. There's some songs that you'll never get cut if you don't write it with the artist because they're only going to cut one of those, and you need to be there when they decide to write it. Right. It's just pointing your songs, but at the end of the day, God puts them where they're going to go, and we don't really have anything to do with it.
Come on. Well, growing up with a music business family, some of the greatest songs I've ever heard are on a demo tape, and they've never been cut. And there's unlimited, like there's no infinity of them. You know what I'm saying?
Send them to me.
Man, there's just some killer ones. And the coolest thing is some of them are written by some guy, awful famous people these days. You know what I mean? Because that's how a lot of the artists got started was singing those demos. And that's how they ate for a long time while they was figuring it out. If you had to, this is a tough question because you like them all, but like, is there any of yours that stand out that just like, if they had to play one at your funeral or whatever, that like is just yours?
Well, the last two questions that you asked me are the most asked questions, but you've asked them in a unique way. One is, music. When it comes to music, is it words versus music first? And the second one is, what's your favorite song? Mm-hmm. And I get that asked a lot. And I truly say you've probably never heard my favorite song, just like the guys that you're talking about on those demo tapes. You probably never heard my favorite song because we do this for a living. We put puzzle pieces together, and I hate to look at it like that, but that's the truth. And sometimes it becomes such of a puzzle piece putting together kind of thing that sometimes you lose some emotion, or sometimes you just have to check out because it's so hard to get songs cut that you just it becomes a little bit of an arm's length transaction between you and the song you wrote and who's going to hear it and why didn't they cut it. And you can drive yourself crazy trying to make sense of why somebody said no, or how could they not possibly say yes, or man, I really want to hear their record if they got 10 songs better than this one. Mm-hmm. And that's a daily thought, and everybody thinks that. So you gotta just do songs that you believe in. For me, probably my favorite song is a song called Man Like Me. It was on my first album that a few people heard. There's a song called Shadows of Heartland. Mm-hmm. There's a song called One More Believer, and those are probably my 3 favorite songs that I've written that were on my first album. I got a song called Just to Prove I Could that I've written. But I've got songs that I've written for other people that I just cannot believe haven't been cut in 2 different lanes. There's lots of lanes that these songs can live in. They can just be a hit. It's like, man, it's a hit. I can't believe nobody jumped on it. Or it could be, man, this song is just deep and awesome and means something, and it's going to slay people if somebody would just wrap their hands around it, The favorite song that I have that everyone has probably heard is, for me, that I loved was Some of It.
Okay.
I just love that song. I just wrote a song called Note to Self, which is similar to Some of It, and it's similar to Don't Ask Me How I Know, which was my song that I had a hit with years ago. And they're all just kind of letters to an unborn child, if you will, or letters to somebody that you're not talking to. And just when you say, what song would you like played at your funeral, I think whichever song it may be at the time, I hope that it's something that is a laundry list of things that I've learned that I want the world to hear. And those are my favorite songs that touch people. The Shave is touching people in a similar way, but it's touching people through them, And that's the thing that a lot of artists forget to do, is that this is a service industry. It's just like waiting tables. It's just like helping somebody get something to drink on an airplane. We're just bringing people music, and a lot of times it's background while people are doing their dishes, and people take themselves so seriously, and it's just like, relax, man. Just give them something they can use, and that's the thing. You never know who's going to love what. And my favorite thing is to have 10 different people give me 10 different favorite songs. That's how you know you're doing good.
Well, there's something you mentioned, like, just being out and about, and something will come to you and you have to run outside and document it. You mentioned before that everybody is a songwriter, just everybody's not paying attention. It's kind of like when, you drive by this array of cars on the road every day, and they're all kind of different ones. But when you notice one that you like, you start to see more of them. You know what I mean? So it's kind of what you start to attract things that are relevant in your mind.
I never noticed a 1970 Pinto till I broke up with Andrea Edwards, and that's what she drove. And now there's Pintos everywhere. It's like, that's the way it is.
That's right. Well, man, it's so a lot of what you focus on grows, and most people are so focused on their obstacles and what's going bad in their life that they don't even recognize the good when it's right next to them. So, and you have an amazing gift with phrasing. You can say something in a way that just, to me, that's what gets me, is the way that you say it. So, as a matter of fact, in The Shave, talking about being as old as your daddy was when he was that young. Like, it's kind of an almost an oxymoron the way you say it, but it's just the way, the phrasing of it, just like the goosebumps pop up.
And sometimes, we obliterate the English language for a good cause. And that was definitely not, probably the way you would talk if you're sitting down drinking a beer with somebody. That's the way you talk after you drink a bunch of beers with somebody. But that was the whole thing. Is I was like, every man has experienced becoming their dad. And,
it's crazy.
The smarter you get, the smarter your dad gets. The smarter your dad gets, the smarter you become. And everybody's had their dad that was the dumbest person in the world, and they were the smartest guy. And now it's in the middle. It's like, I'm not the dumbest guy, I'm not the smartest guy, I'm just a wiser guy. And and I think that's probably what caused my dad. I now know why my dad was rolling his eyes when he wasn't, or I know why he was holding his tongue when he was holding it. It's just letting me grow and let me figure it out for myself. And that's the best thing you can do as a dad, is to, put your children in a position to win, but don't win it for them. Just put them where they need to be, keep people off of them, protect them, and let them make their own mistakes. And he did that for me for a really, really long time, and I made a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. But, he's my dad, and the older I get, the smarter he becomes. And, I think now I could see why my dad was like, "You're going to do what?" And I'm like, "I'm going to go to Nashville." "Well, do you have a job?" "No, sir." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to get one." "Well, do you have a car?" "No, sir." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to get one." "Well, do you have a place to live?" I just looked at him. He goes, "You're going to get one." I'm going to get one. He goes, "Well, what's going to happen in 5 years if you don't make it?" I said, "I'm going to give myself another 5 years." And he went, "All right, well, when you going?"
Like that Ace Ventura, if I'm not back in 5 minutes, just wait longer.
Yeah, that's right. Because you can't have a plan B in this town. This town's too hard. It's not mean. You just can't have a plan B.
You can't. You can't have if you're starting any business, you can't have a plan B because you gave yourself an out.
And I tell people, human nature is to thrive. And then they say, what's the number one piece of advice you give me for writing songs? I said, well, I can give you lots of advice on how to write a song, but the main advice that I can give you doesn't really have anything to do with writing songs. It has to do with not doing anything other than what you love, because human nature is to thrive. So if you move here to be a songwriter and you do anything other than that's above delivering pizzas, or that's above some kind of temporary thing where you can shuck and jive around a schedule, if you do anything that's a real job, human nature is to thrive at that job. So next thing you know, you got kids in an independent school district, you're not on the road, you're not playing music, and you're thriving at your business. And I'm not telling people not to thrive. I'm just, if you moved here to do what you love, don't do something that you don't, because, figure out what you can do other than what you love, and don't do that.
That's right. We say it around here all the time. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, you're not doing what God put you here to do.
That's right.
Well, don't ask him how he knows, folks.
Literally. But
So, and that was, and everybody's heard it. Don't drink the water in Mexico.
Right.
And you said, don't ask me how I know. It's hysterical, man.
People say, why did you choose songwriting? I said, I've always felt like God put me here to say the things that everybody else is thinking.
That's right.
That they can't say or don't want to say or don't have a podium for.
So check this out, folks. We're going to hear a little bit about the business side, the business mind of this brilliant man right here, and then he's going to perform his new single, "To Shave," for us in just a minute. So, one of the most impressive things, a lot of artists and artistic people are not great business people. I would have probably played professional baseball at a higher level or even further if I had understood the business side of it. I was just a player happy to be there, sure. And I didn't know there was a whole other world that was happening that I'm involved in, or at least other people are involving me in it. And I never understood that for the longest time. And going back to kind of what you said, kudos to my parents, because my parents did a great job raising me with, a lot of times we coddle our kids, and life's not going to coddle them, So, right. As a matter of fact, the only anytime life ever whipped my butt, it's because my parents protected me from it. The greatest thing my parents did is they didn't keep me from getting knocked down. They made me get back up. Right. And that's what they taught me how to do. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's our job as parents, is to make them get back up.
From the time just the earliest time I can remember, my dad's a football coach, and it's just old West Texas cowboy football coach. So anytime you'd fall and skin a knee or, hurt yourself or whatever, he would make sure you're all right. But he never called him. He said, get up, you're killing the grass, right?
That's right.
And then that happened all the way through. I mean, I wanted to toilet paper my own house, at Halloween, because my dad was my teacher. I had him for 2 classes. I had him for football. I had him for weightlifting. I just had, I was with my dad a lot as a kid. And so, nobody likes their teachers, and nobody likes their people of authority over when you're 15 years old trying to figure yourself out, me included. But he never coddled me. He made me tough. And I moved around, went to 4 different high schools, because, in Texas, a bad football coach moves around a bunch, and a good football coach moves around even more as he's making that climb and trying to get where he's going. And, you live where the job is. And so I moved around, and with that became this mental toughness of just, I don't know, I think making it in anything is a mixture of figuring out, okay, who do I need to like me? Who do I need to start a relationship with? And if they don't like me, how do I handle it? And I think that's the same. I think I got a real big dose of that as a kid traveling around, because it's like, I know who I am. I probably can tell you who's not going to get me, who's going to get me. And it just, the more you can know about yourself, the less somebody can tell you who you are. And that's the key of this town. Wow. And I think that happened in the 4th grade for me, and it started from the 4th grade all the way through my senior year of just my sister and I being the new kids in school every year, and just having each other and just going, well, see you at the end of the day. And maybe we have new friends, maybe we lost some, but just knowing yourself. And I think my dad was always such a big supporter of that. And that's where my confidence has come from. At the time, I was probably being bullied in every grade, and I just kind of outgrew that. And I tell kids all the time when I speak to kids, I'm like, man, you don't fix bullying by being a bully. You fix bullying by just not needing their friendship and figuring out, be a friend to yourself first, if you love you, somebody else will, and if you don't, nobody will.
Told you. Told you. Well, talk to me about the business side, because you have successes outside of music, right? In the business world, and that comes with, there's a certain way things are done, and knowing how to present, and knowing all these things that have to happen, business models and strategies and plans and everything else, getting investors on board, all this stuff. How in the hell did you learn that doing music?
It's so funny. The very first thing I did outside of music was I opened a restaurant called Lucy's Country Cafe. My wife's named Lucy. And we opened Lucy's Country Cafe, and I remember them interviewing me, and they're like, "You've been in the business, in the songwriting business, for 18 years at the time. You've been in the business for 18 years. What restaurant experience do you have?" I said, "Well, I've been in the music business 18 years, which means I have 15 years of restaurant experience. I've waited every table, made every kind of pizza, been fired, obviously,
That's
as
right.
discussed. But I think a business mind is just, I think everybody probably has a decent business mind. They just have to get everything else out of their way. And that's the hardest part about being good at business, is that having the bandwidth to do a lot of different things and spin a lot of different plates. So it's not so much, hey, he's great at business, or hey, he's great at writing songs. It's a matter of, how do you get this and not halfway do both things?
That's right.
And so it's just bandwidth and managing your time and managing your brain. I've got a lot of good things. Unfortunately, music is not the lucrative business that it used to be. People think there's so much money. And if you have a single on the radio, it still pays about the same that it always has, which is really well. It's getting harder and harder and harder to get those singles, because there's more and more artists writing their own songs.
Just to cut on an album used to be a big deal.
It was $50,000, if it went platinum, and I'd have 8 or 9 songs on a record. When I was having those songs with Toby, I'd have maybe 6 to 10 songs on a Toby Keith record, but the sales had gone down with the downloading. The hard copy sales went away.
That's when Dad got out, yeah.
Right, and now the downloading's gone, and now it's streaming, which we could wreck a whole podcast talking about the danger of streaming to songwriters, But because of that, I realized this is a good place to make money, not a great place to keep it. Okay. So I've had to take my money and pull it out of the music business and put it into things that are, unfortunately, if I were to pitch you the business model that is the music business, you would never invest in me, right?
That's correct.
Because it's a 50-50 deal. It's like the worst banking loan you can ever have. And it's just hard to make money, hard to pay money back. But when you do make a lick, it's real obvious that to get your money out, put in other things. So I've put it in real estate. I've put it in, some stock market stuff. And I didn't originally, when I first started making money, I didn't put it in the stock market because I didn't understand it. And it was like smoke for me. So I bought a lot of real estate, and it worked out. But the problem with real estate is, if you need $50,000, you got to go sell $1 million farm.
That's right.
To get $50,000. So I've figured out how to diversify over the years and start businesses. And I've had everything from, when I was a kid, I used to mow yards. I've been working since I was about 8 years old. And my very first business, I was mowing yards. My dad bought me a big wheel lawnmower, and I figured out how to tie it to the back behind my bicycle seat, and I would just pedal all over Miami, Texas, all over Panhandle, Texas with this. I had a weed eater strapped to the handlebars, and I had a lawnmower hanging off the back, and I had these little business cards that said Bobby Pinson, dirty work, dirt cheap. And when I came up, that was the first hook I ever wrote. And
I love it.
And I did. I paid for all my bicycles, paid for better bicycles, better mowers, and that kid that would pedal all over Texas, basically all over these small towns in Texas, I'm still doing the same thing, just a bigger bicycle.
That's right. Well, man, that's like, isn't it crazy how life comes full circle at you no matter what. A lot of mistakes have to get made along the way, and again, it's getting back up. The biggest mistake we see in our new business owners and our agencies and such is when they hit that first hard patch, their circumstances define them at that moment, and they forget about all the good that happened. There's no balance, they're just looking for, it's kind of like the news these days. It's all, there's a whole other side of it that we don't hear enough of, and that's the good part, the good news. But it's hard to get up. We're all our own worst enemy. At the end of the day, that for whatever reason, we're just not a confident tribe. I don't know why.
Well, I think getting out of your way is the hardest thing a guy can do. It's way too close to exercise. you know. And to be honest with you, everybody said, "Why did you quit making records?" I honestly think God got me out of my own way. I lost my voice in the middle of a record deal. It's not that I couldn't sing. It was a different tone coming out. I was singing pitchy. I'm not a pitchy singer. And it just went away for about 6 years to where there was no way I could have a record deal.
Wow.
And so I basically became a songwriter through that. And I laugh and I joke. They say, "How do you become a songwriter?" I'm like, "Oh, that's easy. Just get a record deal, make your record label mad, and poof, you're a songwriter." Ta-da, look at me. Abracadabra. But it's not that simple. And at the same time, it's got real simple. There was no choice. I had to not make records and become a songwriter. Now my voice is back. And I just feel like that was God getting me out of my own way. And now I'm in a position to make records that I want to make, put them out the way I want to make them, put them out to who I want to hear them, and not worry about all the other things that I never felt like were hurdles in the real race. There's
That's right.
Lots of hurdles in this town. And it goes back to when you say, what's your favorite song? Well, my favorite song you probably never heard, because those songs have to jump all the hurdles, that all the hits that you hear on the radio, they have to jump hurdles that are not part of the real race.
That's right.
And sometimes just writing a magical song that people really want to hear, it'll light the world on fire once they finally get to hear it. And I feel like that's what's happening with The Shave.
Well, it sure does, man. And it's so hard to get up and great song from back in the day called Unanswered Prayers. It's they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, and not everything is in, like you said, it's not about your plan, it's about God's plan.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So,
and it sounds cliche, and hey man, you talk about dad's forgiving you when you mess up. He's the ultimate dad, right? He's the ultimate forgiver.
That's right.
The father. And there's a lot of responsibility comes with not being able to get something wrong. It's like when somebody asks you a "what do you think" question. You can't get that question wrong. It's what you think. But put some thought into what you think before you think it, before you say it. And I feel like that's the same thing with living life, is that it's your life. So you might do wrong, but you're not getting it wrong. You're just wrong at the moment. And I think it's how much thought did you put into the mistake you made, or how much effort did you put into realizing, hey, am I doing the right thing? And it's a big responsibility when nobody's telling you what to do. And I think that's what I teach my son, is like, I'm not going to be around to tell you yes or no or right or wrong. So while I got you, I'm just going to put you in a position to not have to ask me.
That's exactly right. So check this out, folks. For the first time, let me get some levels here. For the first time ever on the Hitstreak podcast, we are going to have a live performance, and even cooler than that, it's of a brand new single by my man right here, Mr. Bobby Pinson, and it's called The Shave, and he's going to give you a little introduction about where the song came from. And I'm going to get my paper towels and tissues ready, because it gets me every single time. Every single time. And with that, Mr. Bobby, I'm going to turn it over to you, baby.
Well, I appreciate that. My dad's been gone almost 3 years, believe it or not, and time flies when you're missing somebody. And I'd gotten the call that I knew was coming. I just wasn't sure what day it was going to be, and I knew Dad wasn't going to be here much longer. It's just the way it goes. And so I went into him, and I walk in this hotel room, and I walk into this hospital room, and there's the toughest man I know, my hero, laying in bed kind of at the end of this fight, and real close to the end. And there's this just kind of wild, ornery West Texas, rough cowboy football coach, just looking at me, and his eyes are so clear. I was expecting the worst, and he couldn't talk, and he had this ventilator in. And if you've ever had somebody tell you they love you without words, it's the most humbling thing a guy could go through. And I'm sitting there, and he's so clear, and he's just loving me with his eyes, and I'm watching my life flash before his eyes, and he keeps looking over at this hospital tray, that tray that fits over your bed or whatever, and I said, "What you need, Dad?" And he's like, kind of nodding towards the shaving kit that Mom had him laying there. And so I wound up getting this razor out. He kept nodding until I figured out what he wanted. And I pulled this razor out, and I said, "You want me to shave you?" And he nodded, and he had this old neck beard and just was uncomfortable. And I just think he didn't want to meet Jesus with a beard, you know. He didn't say that, but I could see that. And so I found myself shaving the guy that taught me how to shave. And that moment, it seemed like I spent 10 hours doing this. And it was probably just 10 minutes, but it seemed like forever. And that moment just kind of cut my life into two pieces, where there's all the days before and all the days that I'll spend without him after the shave. You know? Can't put my finger on the day everything started to change, but I can still see my baby face in the bathroom mirror, just like yesterday, standing there halfway in between a man and a boy about 13. A razor in my hand and some Barbasol cream and a puddle in the sink. I still hear my daddy say, let's take our time, we ain't in no hurry, just nice and slow, 'cause you don't get this day back. He said, I'm right here, son, ain't no need to worry. And he wiped my face with love and a warm wash rag. He said, look at that, it ain't a half bad shave. Fast forward a bunch of football games, a few truck wrecks, and a couple heartbreaks, and I'm standing there with my own son, old as my dad when I was that young, watching a little boy disappear, smiling proud and fighting back tears like he did then when we were here. I heard me hear him say, let's take our time, we ain't in no hurry, just nice and slow, 'cause you don't get this day back. I said, I'm right here, son, ain't no need to worry. And I wiped his face with love and a warm wash rag. I said, look at that, it ain't a half bad shave. Fast forward a bunch of towns and a wife, most of the rest of my daddy's life in a hospital bed wasting away. He looked at me, pointed to his face, and a razor sitting on a slide-out tray. I picked it up like yesterday, last thing my daddy heard me say. Let's take our time, we ain't in no hurry, just nice and slow, you don't get this day back. I said, I'm right here, Dad, ain't no need to worry. And I wiped his face with love and a warm wash rag. I said, look at that, it ain't a half bad shave.
Oh my gosh, man. Oh,
You crying? You leaking whiskey?
I'm leaking whiskey over here. It gets me every time. I mean, you just literally, like, the full life circle of a young boy is in that, or just of a man is in that song right there.
Well, you know, moments go by, and that's what life is. It's just moments going by, and a lot of them we don't see. You know, we don't see till later, and that's why I say, you know, the shave isn't about losing somebody; it's about finding them again. And you know, make sure you love them while they're here. That's the thing. It's like, you know, there's always days we wish we had back. There's always things we wish we had said. And I always laugh because everybody knows I say what I think and at all cost. So, and we laugh and we joke and we say, I'm not going to die wishing I'd have said something. But the truth is, there's always things that we could have said more, or things that we could have understood more, or just not said anything and just stood by somebody closer, and or maybe helped somebody through a moment you didn't know they were going through. And so when you lose somebody, all those things, the very first thing that you think of is not, all the great things that happened. It's all the things that you didn't get to do with them. It's like, I didn't know today was going to be the day. And I didn't really talk to my dad a lot the last year of his life for lots of reasons, and I just, to be there in the end and just know everything was okay without even having a conversation. It's like sometimes you'll have an argument with someone, or you'll have a fight, or you'll have a falling out or whatever, and there's always a conversation that either does or doesn't happen. And in this particular case, the conversation that we had of "it's okay" didn't have any words. And so that's, though it sounds like it's about shaving, it really was about saying I'm sorry and I love you.
Man, like, I can still remember where we were sitting not far from here when my daddy taught me how to shave. Right. I still remember it. And my son's 13, and we're about to do that.
Well, video it and send it to him.
Oh my gosh. Well, just how many people would it take to do that, to make an amazing music video?
Well, it's happening.
That's what
I was going to tell you. So we just did a live performance video, and then we're doing another thing. All these comments, I've been written up in some articles in my career, and I love that, and I've been reviewed really well on some songs, and I love that. But the best thing is to get just from the source, just the most magical thing that can happen for me are all the posts that are, I'm literally just taking pictures of these posts and reposting them, in a big thing. And there's hundreds of posts of people talking about their dads, and the shave. Look, the shave is just paint for somebody else's picture. It's not that I need to have somebody go, that exactly that thing right there that you just said happened exactly to me. That's not what it's about. It's just my paint for somebody else's picture. Maybe it's a girl and her mom, or a girl and her grandpa, or a dad and his daughter. Mm-hmm. It's just about loving people while they're here.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. So let's make sure everybody knows where they can go get this sucker, right? So it's streaming everywhere.
Yeah, it's streaming everywhere. It just came out Friday, and it's blowing up. And I just love that, because there's nothing about this song that's hype. There's no major label. There's no major label money behind it. There's not, everybody putting it out there. It's just a good song finding its way to good people that need to hear one. And
did you produce it?
I produced it.
Man, it's so good, Bobby.
Thank you. I've been producing, for years, and very selective of who I do. I just don't want to be out there producing everybody. Excuse me, but I love making music, and to me, producing is kind of the last part of the songwriting process. So sometimes when I write a song with an artist and it's just a work tape, I never really feel like I got to complete the song, and then you send it off and hope they get it right. But I love the ones that I'm always able to see all the way to the end. And this is one I wrote by myself. I produced it by myself, and have put it out on my own label, and it's working, and I'm excited.
That's right. And you also have a on Instagram. You are at The Real Bobby Pinson.
At The Real Bobby Pinson.
And they can get a lot of updates. Anywhere else they can get any updates on what you're doing?
You obviously can stream it on Spotify, Apple Music. You can go to my website, and it'll send you to all my music from 25 years worth of me caterwauling. And yeah, I want to see these videos of people shaving. I've gotten everything from one of my earliest memories of learning to shave. I wasn't shaving. I had a razor with the lid on it, one of those little yellow razors, the plastic travel razors, and my dad put the lid on it.
The old yellow Bic one?
That's right, the old yellow Bic. And I would shave, without a blade right beside him when I was 2 or 3, Yep. And I've gotten a lot of those videos, and I want to see your videos. Send them to me. Just respond or send them to Facebook or Instagram or whatever you do out there, and we're going to make a big collaboration of a lot of that.
Well, when I was, before I actually started shaving, my parents always told me, if there was a razor laying around, don't play with it. It's not a toy. And, of course, I'm curious. And I remember, I never will forget that one time I finally figured out that top comes off.
Oh, man.
And then I walked back in there, and I didn't know that you shaved down, not sideways.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I shaved. Gosh. I did it sideways just a little bit. And when it burned, I stopped, right? So, but I didn't look in the mirror. And I walked back in there, and my mama said, you was playing with the razor, wasn't you? And I said, no.
Right. Well, I wrote this song years ago called Ford Fairlane, and it's one of my favorite songs. I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but I meant to. It's one of my favorite songs on my first album on my Man Like Me record. And I remember turning that in because I made a record of all songs that they probably wouldn't pitch to somebody else, because they just weren't, like I said, those ones that skated across the top. They were almost too meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And I played it. She goes, "That's good. It's a good song about a car." It's called Four Fell In. She goes, "I mean, that's good. I don't know if anybody's cutting songs about cars." And I looked at her and I said, that song's not about a car any more than Rocky is about boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Rocky is about boxing." I'm like, "No, ma'am. Rocky is not. Rocky's about living. Mm-hmm. Rocky's about getting beat up and, beating life before it beats you. Rocky's about, just keeping going when nobody says you can." And I said, "This song is no more about a car. It's about love and life." And,
right.
and I say the same thing about the shave. It's not about shave. It's not about a razor and a dad and a son, making whiskers go away. It's about a dad and a son.
Mm. Mm. That's awesome. Anything else, man, you want to...
I think we covered it, man. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate your time. This is awesome, and you guys got quite the setup here.
Yes, sir.
Pretty awesome.
Yes, sir. Well, it was an absolute treat having you. Because you're gonna be doing it for just about everybody all over town and everywhere else. So how cool is that we had it done right here in the Hit Lab on the Hitstreak, man? I can't get over that. I'll remember this moment forever for sure.
Well, likewise, I appreciate you having me.
Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Hitstreak. Once again, thanks again to my guest, Mr. Bobby Pinson.
Yeah, baby.
And we'll see you guys next time. God bless.